of the NAACP, I just wanted to say that we're glad to be here. We are the nation's oldest and largest civil rights organization. The NAACP exists and is actively working to inform and encourage civil engagement through voter registration, activities, and public forums. We oppose discrimination and other policies that make it more difficult for citizens to cast their ballot. The NAACP works to educate all political candidates to support policies that improve access to quality education and economic opportunity, criminal justice reform, the environment, health care, and youth empowerment, with dedication to removing all race-based hate and discrimination from our society. We're going to have the candidates come up now. I'm sure it would be easier for you to come to my right, your left, and take a seat. Your name placard is here. We have a bottle of water for you. We're going to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves to those of us who may be here today, and I don't want to mess up any names. Well, you know, there are individuals in 4A, what we would call that, when you came in, that are registering those who need to be registered to vote. The restrooms, you passed on your way in. There are individuals in the hall that will lead you to those public restrooms. Anita Cruz, member of the local NAACP, is going to come and moderate us through this time. I pray that you will silence all your phones, that you will be respectful one toward another. We have a process and protocol. You may not know it, but Sister Cruz knows it, and we're going to allow her to lead us in this time of engagement. Why don't you say a great amen for her as she comes? Amen. No, I'm sorry. I'm from the church. A great amen. Amen. I like that.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Just want to thank everyone for being here. I'm so excited just to have this opportunity. I think the city should be very excited to have this opportunity to come together to hear these men and women give their ideas on how to lead Racine. So I will give a few housekeeping rules and information, and then we'll jump right into it. All right, so why don't we start with Mr. Hargrove to give introductions, and after that we'll follow with Mr. Maldonado, Mr. Mason, Mr. Rendon, Mr. Rodriguez, and then Ms. Martin.
So make sure, oh, you got the timer right there. Yeah. I'll have to use my phone.
All right, you can go ahead.
Greetings. I am Melvin Hargrove, and I'm running for mayor, first and foremost because I love this city. I purposely and deliberately chose to stay here with my family and raise my family here. I've been married to my wife and lifelong sweetheart, Marie, for 30 years and counting. We have 3 children from our marriage, now even a grandson who actually has a birthday today. So thank God for that. I graduated from St. Cat's in 1984, and then from there I went to the military to serve for 4 years active duty. As a Racine native, I know Racine and is ready for new principled leadership for all of Racine, and not just some. We need to put the people first and politics last in this city. And I believe if we reach in to our citizens that we talk about, reach out to our surrounding neighbors, our municipalities, and then we can also rise together, rebuild a broken relationship, we can also rise together as a city and as a region. I've served my country in the U.S. Army in the reserves for 19 years. And for 30 years, I've served Racine in various capacities, both elected and unelected, including the school board, including as a business owner, Zoe Outreach Ministries, a member of Racine Police and Fire Commission, a member of the Racine Planning Commission. And I know that I'm ready to serve as mayor of this city, to rebuild Racine. I'm also running for mayor so that every child, every family, all the community have the same opportunity for success. The people of Racine deserve a mayor who respects their hard work and recognizes their differences and diversity as a strength to overcome, and not simply as a flaw. And together, I know we will create a healthy economy where everyone benefits, where equality and equity are recognized and respected.
Hello everybody, my name is Bobby Maldonado. I am the co-chair of the Racine Green Party. And my background, how I got involved politically in my life is that my parents were part of the minority bar lawsuit here in the city of Racine. To me, racism is alive and well, especially here in the city of Racine. And my goal will be to fight that. Recently, I was part of the Standing Rock protest. I was out there for a couple of weeks because we all know water is life. And my goal is, just like I've been in a lot of protests, I'll be fighting for the city of Racine. And this is not just a mayoral run. We are running multiple candidates in the 2018 and 2019 election because Racine has been stagnant for years. We need to move Racine in a progressive way, and we need to move Racine. We're last place, and we're usually in last place in unemployment. We are not going anywhere when it comes to the environment. We need to be strong in bringing the coalition together of different groups of people. So I really want to, that would be my goal, is to get people to fight together. Well, not fight together. Sorry about that. The goal would be to build a coalition so we can fight the good fight.
Thank you. My name is Corey Mason, and for the last 11 years I've had the honor of serving this community as your state representative. For 6 generations, my family has called Racine home, and proudly so. I grew up here in Racine, went to Racine Public Schools, one of them just a block away, where John Lehman was one of my middle school teachers. And what I love about Racine is that, in that school experience, is that it offered a diverse school with great academics, from which I benefited greatly, and we had great schools where people could all reach their God-given potential. And that's what I want for my kids too. It's here in Racine that I learned about innovation, and this is the small engine capital of the world. We made things here, we built things here, and when people did that work, they got paid a living wage and were able to make ends meet and raise their family. People here weren't rich, but they made enough that they could own a home and hopefully send their kids to college one day. And that was in no small part to the support they got from labor unions, who helped them negotiate good hours, wages, and working conditions. I have had, as I said, the honor of serving in the state legislature for the last 11 years. But I've also seen things fall apart at the national and state level and get really bogged down in divisiveness and partisanship to the point where things cannot get done. But if you want to see a place where progressive change can still happen, it is at the local level that things can occur. It is at the local level where we have some of the biggest challenges, but some of the biggest opportunities. At the end of the day, politics for me has always been about improving the lives of the constituents that you serve. And I think as mayor, there are more opportunities to move Racine forward for everyone, to close some of the gaps that exist for everyone, so that everyone has the potential to succeed and move Racine forward. I'd be honored to have your vote for mayor on September 19th. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank every one of you for being here this afternoon and your interest in the political system here in the city. My name is Wally Rendon, and I moved to Racine in 1967 from Texas, folks. When I first moved here, I worked at JI Case, got laid off of there, got a job at Harris Metals, another foundry. The local union there with Local 1703, I worked my way up from a steward up to running the president of that local for 7 years. After that, folks, I got a job at City of Racine, and I spent 24 years, folks, working for the City of Racine, protecting the City of Racine with the police department. I'm in this race, folks, not so much for myself, but for you all. It is not the politics, folks, or a stepping stone for political positions, or even for a feather in my hat. Or even income, because I don't even know what this position takes. My main interest, folks, is running for mayor, is to focus on Racine, as Ben said earlier. We need to support our local folks. We need to support our local business owners. What I tell people, folks, is one thing to support your big businesses, folks, but it's another thing to support your local businesses. So we need to develop a sustainable budget, create a job-friendly environment, create safe neighborhoods, and make Racine the Bell City it was once. As you know, one of the things that I'd like to do is increase back our population. We went from 100,000 when I got here to about 77,000 right now. Let's work together to make sure that this city is the one that people want to move to. So I would appreciate your vote on September 19th as mayor of Racine. Thank you very much.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Austin Rodriguez, and I got into the political arena because I just want to find a satisfying career-end job in politics, possibly. Currently, I'm a small business owner. I own a buddy shop doing electronic repairs. I want to bring prosperity to this community by advancing into our technology age. I think reaching out to our millennials, younger adults, is our key to furthering future generations for our community, as well as working on bringing in bigger businesses to thrive on. Because, like Brendan said, we do need big businesses to thrive on, but we also need to work on a community level to bring in prosperity and growth. And that way we can live satisfying, and also we can build a better community trust that way. That's all I got to say at this point in time. I don't really have a 2-minute speech to go on about everything else in life, but I do want to serve as your mayor, so definitely would like to get everyone's vote here, and I do like the smiles, so hopefully I'll be up there and learn some more about politics. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And I want to thank all the gentlemen at this table. It takes a lot for an individual to come forward and offer their services to serve their community. My name is Sandy Widener. I have been in Alderman for almost 18 years, serving the 6th District. I have loved serving in that capacity. But there comes a point where you have to either step up or step away, and I've kind of reached that point because I see the City of Racine is on a brink. And I think it's very important for everyone to understand the direction that the city has been going and how detrimental it could be for us going forward. The fate that Unified is now suffering could be the same fate that the City of Racine will suffer in the future. So we have to be fiscally responsible. I believe that a political campaign should not be viewed by the candidates as an opportunity to sell themselves to the most people through clever slogans or emotional imagery. An appropriate campaign, one that respects the voters and the system, is an opportunity for candidates to reveal themselves as they honestly are and allow the voters to choose from among them who will be most closely represent the needs and the values of the electorate. I am proud of my record as an elected official, and I enthusiastically encourage everyone to become familiar with it, if you have not already, and to know that they can rely on it as a gauge for how I will perform if you choose to elect me your mayor. I am in this race not to satisfy some need or ambition of my own, but to offer my service to the community if they choose to elect me. This is a job, it's not a position, it's not a career move. I pledge to show up for work every day.
Thank you very much. I meant to turn that off.
Has looked to the outside for salvation for the city. I believe in the people of the City of Racine. I always have, I always will. And I believe that our strength has always come from within. I believe that we have to forge a path for young entrepreneurs like the gentleman sitting on my left to forge ahead and create opportunities for jobs here in the city. We need to remove the barriers that we have put in place that has discouraged businesses from coming here and from growing here. So I would be looking for collaboration with the individuals from this city who want to participate in the process for growing our city. I also want to improve the opportunities for those that have not enjoyed the same opportunities that others can because of their circumstances. There are programs available that have kind of fallen by the wayside in the past 10 years that we need to reactivate so that all people have an opportunity to find the kind of work that they want to excel in and find the jobs and opportunities that they can grow in. We need family-sustaining jobs here in Racine. I don't think we're ever going to have a silver bullet. I think it's going to come from within. So it is my hope to improve the job opportunities for our young people here and people who want to work, and to improve our neighborhoods so that people will choose Racine as a place of choice because of the opportunities here.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Okay, well, first thing I want to advance in is in our technology sector. I definitely want to bring more tech jobs into this community, and also our education system in order to get our younger generation ready for the high-tech jobs that these technologies can bring. I think it's very important for us to compete on with the foreign countries that build these technologies, and if we can get ahead on building these devices here, that could definitely benefit for us and further our generation with prosperity. Second thing I want to do is healthcare as well as social development. I think that would be a very good area to look into. We do all need access to healthcare, and as well as social development, helping people with mental illnesses, and as well as just having fun with social media development and stuff like that. I think that's going to be important for our future generations, and that's something we need to start attacking as of right now, because if we don't, we could lose the benefits of the technology or advance in the areas that our country needs to go. With other countries are more advanced than us with the rail system, and as well as technologies. They're already on 5 generations of cell phones and things like that, and we're on our fourth generation of cellular technology. And if we start now and learn those things, then we can build a better community for ourselves right here in Racine, Wisconsin.
Mr. Rendon?
Thank you. So about the two type of ideas of economic development, bringing family living wages to Racine to our people, folks, is number one, let's look at the resources that we all currently have, and look at other resources that are available to us so that we can fulfill those goals as far as jobs for everybody. What I would do, I would work with some of the local manufacturers here, like your Modine, Twin Disc, S.C. Johnson's, and build some partnerships with them to number one, to address the skills gap. Because one of the reasons we hear that jobs are here, but there's no one to take care of the jobs, to fill those jobs. So to develop an employee-driven training, number one of the things we have done, and I'm glad the city did this, was to it's called the ban the box. And one of the things what happens with that, folks, those of you that know may not know about it, but when anybody fills an application for employment, one of the boxes is there, have you ever been convicted of a felony? And then, folks, people that are coming out of corrections, I do financial literacy in several of the correction systems here, and that's one of the challenges I tell them that's going to hurt them, that when they fill out an application, they're going to be asked, check the little box, have you ever been convicted of a felony? They've already paid their dues, folks. That doesn't mean that they are not employable. And a lot of these men and women coming out of there are very successful as far as what the careers they may want to have. I would work with RCDC, Racine County Economic Development Corporation, WIBIC, Wisconsin Women's Business Initiative Corporation, the LIN, Latino Entrepreneurial Network out of Milwaukee, but they do a lot of things here in Racine, to promote new businesses. Small business folks are the ones that create a lot of jobs here in the city. So those are some of the places that I would use to create the jobs here in town. Thank you.
Mr. Mason.
Thank you. Well, I believe the next mayor's most important job is going to be to bring more good middle-class jobs back to Racine. That has got to be priority number one. So only two things to talk about, so I'll talk about them as broadly as I can. The first thing is, Foxconn's very likely going to come right next door or very near to us. We've got to be ready for that, like yesterday. They're talking about 10,000 construction jobs just to build it. They're talking about 13,000 jobs to ultimately work there. We've got to make sure that our residents have the ability to apprentice to get into the building trades and work with programs like OLA's First Choice Career Apprenticeship and Big Step to get people into those trades. We've got to work with Gateway to make sure that we have local residents who are trained to do the work to operate there. And we've got to get ready for the interstate that they're going to rebuild and the water utility requirements that are going to come along. There's a lot of jobs that are going to become available, but those jobs might as well be 100 miles away if we don't get our workforce ready. So we've got to get people trained and into these jobs. It's critically important. The other thing that Foxconn creates is the opportunity for a bunch of smaller businesses to supply them in the area. So 2/3 of the businesses in the city of Racine are 4 employees or less. How do we get them ready to interact with the big company and the big companies that are coming and the ones that already exist to supply them the services and the goods that they'll need to get people to work? So maybe those businesses that employ 4 or few people employ 5 or 10. The other thing that I want to do around jobs is talk about green energy jobs. I want to use the opportunity to reduce our carbon footprint, to make our homes more energy efficient, to use wind and solar, but most importantly to train people and get them into green energy jobs so that we can get people back to work, we can reduce our energy bills, and we might just save the planet while we're at it. Thanks very much.
Okay, so my plan is almost similar to yours, Corey Mason. My goal is to push for skilled trade apprenticeship jobs here with Gateway 2. But I think the only difference is that I'm actually against Foxconn because, in my opinion, Foxconn we're essentially selling out our environment. They're gonna have the ability to dump in our water. They're gonna poison our lands and the air. That is not the right way to go. I also want to invest in green energy and green infrastructure. That is the way we need to start looking forward into the future, and green energy is the future. That is something that we need to really start pushing forward to. I don't think it's a good idea that we have to give up $3 billion to Foxconn. Some experts say that with the way we pay them back for the $3 billion subsidy, we would have to pay back until 2043. That's to me that's a bad deal. And the thing is, right now, Racine, I feel like a lot of people in Racine, we're so desperate for jobs that we're willing to poison our water to get these jobs. So.
Thank you. I'm actually glad that Foxconn is coming. I believe that we have the necessary regulations in place to make sure that we are monitoring Foxconn and what they do into our environment. One thing, though, and that's good that Foxconn is coming, but we have to go back to the fact that we have jobs here as well also. And to be able to as opposed to demonizing business, we need to really begin how do we work with business, especially the big business, to try to make things happen more so in the city. But not just big business and manufacturing, we also need to make sure that I think the biggest driver right now is small business. And we need to be able to make sure that the burdensome regulatory requirements that we place on small businesses are removed. We need to make sure that people are getting a fair shot across the board, not in the sense where if I like you, you can come and get your, you can come and get your application filled. If I don't like you, you can't. It has to be done across the board equally. Also, we have to understand that housing. Do you realize that housing is also a way that you can actually raise economic development? Because if you have good housing and a good housing stock, then what happens is people and not only people, but businesses will move in the area where the housing is. So if you began to raise your housing stock, and you began to build good housing and invest, and then also take and flip other houses and make them better, that rise level of the community. As the community rises, then what? The tax base rises. People want to stay there in those houses. And not only do people want to stay in those houses, people will also want to move in that environment, in the neighborhood where those houses are, because now it's nice, and you can go to the houses, and people don't feel as though they're afraid to go to their businesses. So I think that we have to look at how we use housing also as a way to continue economic development, because a good neighborhood, good business will come in that neighborhood, and then also people will be able to be proud of where they are.
Thank you. Next question to Mr. Rodriguez. What issues do you see in policing within the city? How would you address any issues that you see?
I think Racine's done a fantastic job at their policing efforts. You don't really hear of any police brutality in this community. They work quite well with the residents here, and I would continue working with the Racine Police Department to thrive on get involved with the community and reach out to everyone that's been involved into crime or are interested in a field in police work. I think that Racine Police Department is doing a fabulous job, and there's not much to say on it. Crime rate is down, especially the robberies and theft. Thing we have to work on right now is more of a big drug problem in Racine, I would say, with heroin, other prescription pills, and that needs to be worked on a little bit more. That's all I got to say about that.
Mr. Mendez.
Thanks again. As I mentioned in my opening, I just spent 24 years in the Racine Police Department. Some of you that have been around here for a while remember that the Racine Police Department had a community relations division. At that time, Sil Harris, Inspector Dias were part of that. Myself, Officer Larry Foster, and Bob Quintanilla, who's making rest in peace, were part of the community relations division. That's kind of the forefront of the COP housing nowadays. Having worked there in the police department for all those years, I got a chance to do a little bit of everything. And so one of the things that we need to do as a community, number one, continue to support the police department, give them the resources that they need to be able to do the job that they're going to do. The other thing too, folks, we need to work with the more neighborhood housing projects, and so that we need to really create more neighborhoods that are welcoming to everybody, folks. When I first moved here in Racine, I lived on the north side. I think we were the only Hispanic family that lived on the north side. And somebody thought I was hired to work at the yard there. But anyway, but today the whole city of Racine is pretty well diverse. So we need to do, again, build more programs that are going to help the community move forward. We need to support the police department. We need to create more programs that are in the community center, such as this one, that are going to help the youth of nowadays to stay out of trouble and be proactive and be successful in life. Thank you.
Well, the first thing I'd like to say is just I'd like to acknowledge Wally Rendon's experience and wisdom on the police force. He's probably most qualified to answer this question, so I want to acknowledge that. I think the police force in this community has done a good job with community policing and the cop houses have been a good model. And from everything that I've read, serious violent crimes are actually at an historic low. And that's good, that's very good. But I also know, when we went to a vigil on Packard, several of us were there a few weeks ago where someone was killed. And the statistics might be down, but if someone was murdered on your block, that's still very real. That's still a real problem. So we have to continuously be vigilant about it. I think the most important thing that we need to expect from our police force is that they have the trust and confidence of the community that you're serving. That's really the most important thing, because they're to protect and serve us, and I think we need to keep that in mind. There are still issues that are out there around policing, everything from streetlights to more serious things about the rise of human trafficking and opioids and other things that are an issue. Burglaries are up in some places. But the other thing that I think is really important just to say about community policing and the police force and the way the police interact with the community is we can't force immigrants into the shadows. Because if they feel like they're in the shadows, they don't feel like they can rely on police force to keep them and their loved ones safe. And so I think it's really important that the next mayor sends a message that regardless of your national origin or the color of your skin, you're welcome here and you're going to get treated equally. And it's a really important component of community policing. Thank you.
Okay, so I feel that people of color, we have a different experience with police. I'm just going to say that's how I feel. I'm not anti-police, but I'm anti-bad police policy. What we did this summer, we're trying to weaken the for-profit prison system that we have here in southeastern Wisconsin, because as many of us know, southeastern Wisconsin, we have the highest incarceration rate of young African American males in the whole United States of America. And not too long ago in the Journal Times, we got an article that shows that police use discretion on whether to follow the state statute versus the city ordinance. So, to me, police officers shouldn't be judges. That's why we have judges. So we need to send a message to our police officers, please follow the city ordinance. This is why we do city ordinance. So please follow city ordinance. So yeah, again, I am not anti-police, but we need to, I feel as a person of color, and I know a lot of people feel this way, sometimes calling the police is not, it's not the most welcoming thing because we don't have the best experience. I know a gentleman by the name of James Barker. He has been going all over the city of Racine because he's been charged. He got charged for the police and was unsigned warrants, and he has been trying to get help he's asked many people on this board. So we have a different experience. So I'll just leave it at that. So thank you very much.
Well, first, what I would do is I would ask Chief Howe to stay for the next 5-10 years. Other than that, my experience, first of all, from being a chaplain for 9 years on the PD, and then also 5 more years as a police and fire commission, my experience has been that we have a good police force, no doubt about it. It's not perfect. And so we need to figure out in the ways that the imperfections and how we can actually make that better. What I mean by that, when I've been out just talking to some of our constituents, some of the people, and many of them who look like me, I was sharing with someone before last week. I got a serious education by some young brothers that were over by Martin Luther King Center on what was really going on, what was going on in the streets. But what I know also is that even though we may have some officers that may need to have, some type of I don't want to say reprimand, but some type of guidance or oversight. I believe that as a whole, as in general, we have a good police force. I believe that the community policing model that we use is also a national model, and people come from all over the country to figure out how we are doing community policing. I believe it's a community policing model that we can continue to follow. Yeah, nothing is perfect. You have to continue to be able to make things fit and make things better. But at the end of the day, I believe that we've not experienced, some of the things that the other cities have experienced so far as, police harassment, police shootings, and that's a good thing. And I think it's a result of how policing have happened, but it's also a result of the community also respecting the police. But at the end of the day, there is still respect should go both ways. And I believe that if respect doesn't go both ways, that's when you have an issue, you have a problem. You want to have someone at the head of the PD department to make sure that respect is going both ways. That's not the mayor's job, that's the police chief's job, but it's the mayor's job to make sure that he's doing his job.
Right, Ms. Wiener.
Thank you. I believe that our police chief and our police department serves our community well. Are there areas that they could improve? Absolutely. all of us can improve in whatever our endeavors are. I think the gentleman that spoke before me all brought up very important points to be considered when we think about policing, about community policing. It works very well. I have a theory about the broken windows. I think a lot of the smaller crimes that have been taking place and not been enforced has led to other issues. And I think it's been particularly devastating for some of our inner city communities that have not felt safe because of the activities that have been taking place and not have been addressed. I think another important issue to be considered when we talk about how can our police force better serve our community, I think they need more training and awareness in the issues of mental health. I believe that there is a growing population within our city that have mental health issues, whether as an illness or because of family issues or because there are drugs in their home. And I think that we need to better be able to address those issues on a level with the police department where they have better training and understanding and empathy toward individuals that are suffering from mental health issues. So that is something that I'm hoping, if I get elected mayor, to address when that time comes.
Thank you. Mr. Rendon, what are your ideas on bringing a community health center to the city?
Well, one of the ways, or one of the things we need to do, folks, number one, we need to work with the communities that do have the health centers in their communities. We need to work with the state to look for funding to provide the healthcare centers in our community, because they're vitally important. But most importantly, it would be a center that would be located within the low-income, low populations where people would be able, who may not have access to transportation, where they would be able to either walk to the health center. So that's one of the things that I would look as mayor, to work with those communities that already have it and learn from them as to what some of the steps that need to be taken. What are some of the funds that are available for us to be able to bring the health center to the City of Racine, even as far as going to the state, people like State Representative Mason, to see if there's funds out there available for us to be able to accomplish that goal, because obviously, as just mentioned earlier in some of the comments, the health of our citizens is paramount. If we don't have healthy citizens, we are going to wind up, with people not being able to access health care because they can afford to go to a hospital or emergency room because they don't have the insurance or funds to do so. So that, as mayor, that's what I would do, look for the resources, like I said before, and learn from other municipalities to be able to bring a healthcare center to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I should start by saying I think healthcare is a right and not a privilege, and I think that's something we should all strive for in our country. Until we have it, though, there are important things that we can add to our community, like a federally funded health clinic that can make a big difference. Racine is the biggest city in Wisconsin with no federal health clinic. Milwaukee has, I believe, 15 or 16 of them now. Kenosha has one. We had one for a while, but unfortunately we were basically a satellite of the Beloit Clinic, which then went under. And when we located ours here in Racine, the decision was made to put it out on Northwestern in the old Curtin Clinic, which made it really hard for people who might be able to access it, made it difficult for people to get there. So we've got to do this. If you look at the healthcare disparities that exist in this town, whether it's infant mortality to mental health and lots of things in between, we need access to a federally funded health clinic. Now you might be wondering, what is that? They're federally funded clinics that have higher reimbursement rates so that people with low or no insurance can go there and know that, and then the healthcare professionals working there can know that they will get an appropriate MA reimbursement from the federal government. It provides services to people living in poverty so that they can access healthcare too. We need this. It's going to take literally the federal government giving us our own charter. And if I'm mayor, one of the first things I want to do is set up a committee to move this ball down the road. We have to have a federal clinic. Other communities do. We don't. It's part of the reason we have healthcare disparities the way that we do. It's not going to be easy. Like literally Congress has to say you can have your own charter. So it's going to be something that we're going to have to work hard on, and it won't happen overnight, but it's one of the most important things we can do for our community to reduce the disparities in healthcare and give people access to the care that they need.
Okay, yeah, my goal also is to get healthcare in low-income areas, but specifically, I want to talk about the 03 and the 04 zip codes. We have no healthcare in Racine. We have food deserts. So what are food deserts? That means we have no grocery stores in the 03 and the 04 zip codes either. We have no access to fresh fruits and vegetables. We don't have any stores. We don't have any banks where we live, and we have little restaurants. So as mayor, I will do whatever I can to remember the 03 and the 04 zip codes that are always usually forgotten when these decisions are made. So I feel that in Racine, our politicians, our elected officials, they are obsessed with downtown, and they forget about everybody else and about every other district other than the first district. So my goal is to bring some kind of life to the forgotten districts. So that's my goal. And if you want to take a look on 16th Street, you'll know what I'm talking about. And go on Douglas, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
How many here at some point saw an interview on CNN that Speaker Paul Ryan was at? Not the recent one, but before. In the interview, he mentioned something about the ability of bringing a health care, if I'm not mistaken, a federal community health center in this area somewhere. What I would say is we need to hold them accountable for that. And we need to start finding out what are the necessary parameters or what are the necessary steps that need to be taken in order for it to happen. If that was said, and it was said on public TV, then we need to be, again, hold him accountable for how do we make that happen here. The next step would be going to Kenosha or even going up to Milwaukee. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that Isaac Cox is still have their healthcare center as well too. Finding out what they did, who did they connect with, state representatives, federal as well. Finding out what the process entails to make that happen. I am absolutely certain, I'm absolutely sure that we do need a community health center here in the city. But we can look at what's been done in other places, and we can pull from that and begin to put together our plan to make it happen. But I would say we need to challenge Speaker Paul Ryan on the words he mentioned on national TV some months ago when he talked about the ability to have a federal community health center in this area.
All right, my opinion on the community health care center in this community, in a way I don't know what it is myself, and I want to say no because I kind of like the Badger care system where I can get affordable care at Aurora Hospital or Wheaton Franciscan. And going into a new system of community health care is something that I have to adapt to, and other people have to adapt to this new changing system. And we don't know what they're going to provide. We don't know if it's going to be a lesser type of care. They're just doctors that are just going to see us and we're treated like a number and not a human being. That's a thing I want to be opposed to as of right now. And I want to concentrate more on our Badger care, giving people state care, as in keeping our states more, how would you say, more into our system so that they can take care of their residents and lean off of the federal system. I don't think that's something that we should be tapping into. And as a community, we need to look out for one another and being holistic, like Fabio said. We can definitely build for a better, healthier environment. So with provided with the state care as we got right now, I wouldn't want to change from that. I believe having a private care is another option that we all can tap into, and if that's something we can afford, we can get, and state care is something that we can opt into if we don't live up to our means of living, and I don't want to change from that system. It's something that I'm used to as of right now. And change it for anybody else. I mean, getting a brand new phone or something and having to relearn this device or such hospital.
Thank you. Ms. Wagner?
Thank you. Well, we, as Representative Mason said, we did have a community health center here up until a couple years ago, and we currently have the healthcare network, which serves probably about 6,000 people a year. And that has been a somewhat effective way of serving the needs of the population that have not had health care. I believe with the Affordable Health Care Act, more people than before now currently have insurance. The problem is finding the providers. And we have to encourage more providers to come to our area to serve the population here. We used to have 2 hospitals, we're down to 1, we've lost that competition. Another thing is if you are a county employee, a city employee, or a unified employee, you do have a health care center, and it's located in the Old Curtin Clinic building on Northwestern Avenue, which I think is the old 4 zip code. I think the services that are provided to employees of Unified in the city and the county, that could be expanded to serve other people that do not have access to either a physician or expanded to the dentistry area. One of the biggest problems we have with our healthcare system here is we don't have enough mental health providers, and we don't have enough or ability for people to see a dentist. And that's something that, when I'm elected mayor, that we will address. I intend to form an advisory committee on improving the dental services available to not only our children, but to the adults that need dental, because a lot of times your physical health is tied to your dental health. So that is something that needs to be addressed, as well as the mental health issues, as I've spoken of before.
Mr. Mason, how will you build trust between our city institutions and our immigrant community?
This is a really important question that a lot of people are facing right now. There's a couple things that I would say about this, and I mentioned some of this when I was at the DACA rally earlier this week. It's really important that that we remember that we're a city of immigrants. This whole city, our entire history, was built on the story of immigrants. And so now we have a place where, you know, it's now federal policy that they're going to begin really to go after people based on their national origin or the color of their skin. And that's absolutely unacceptable. So we have to stand firm against that and make it clear that that doesn't reflect our values. I've also been involved in this. A few years ago, there was something that was going on at the courthouses called Spanish Days, where suddenly there were ICE agents appearing in the courthouse on days that Spanish translators were there to work with the immigrant community, and suddenly people who came in to pay a small forfeiture found themselves taken into custody by federal agents. I mean, look, it is critically important that we are a community that welcomes immigrants. I think keeping immigrants in the shadows is not only shameful and immoral, it's bad for our economy, it's bad for letting people start their next small business and really achieving the American dream. Because what are we if we're not a nation of immigrants? We have to be a kind of community that welcomes people, that embraces people. So to do that, you have to be a community that's against all this rhetoric that's coming down, where people feel like they're targeted. And look, I mean, for those dreamers that go to school, I can't imagine. I have an 8, 6, and 5-year-old. I can't imagine sending one of them to school and not knowing if some federal agent was going to seize one of them and I wouldn't be able to see them again. And I would just gander this. If this was happening to white people, it would stop next week. So we've got to be a community that
not. Okay, so I want to remind everybody, this is why I left the Democratic Party. Under the Obama administration, we deported the most immigrants in our history of recent history. So we always hear that the Democrats are always about protecting our documented brothers and sisters, but at the end of the day, they always fall short. So my goal here in the local level, my parents were both immigrants, So for us, it's real. You know what I mean? Like, it's real for us. Because we are the ones that get deported. We are the ones that we have to fear. This is why a lot of us don't even like to drive. We have to call our friends because we have to call our friends who have a driver's license, because we are afraid to drive. You know what I mean? So for us, it's different. It's different. This is why I left the Democratic Party. This is why we started the Racine Green Party. What we're going to try to do here is something that happened in Milwaukee. Pass the city ID. So when the police pulls you over, or if you want to go to the library, want to get some medication, you can finally use some kind of form of identification. That way we keep people out of the shadows, bring people back into the fold. So yeah, we need to really, when we say we want to support our undocumented brothers and sisters, let's really mean it, please.
Well, first, I must, how want to put this? Personally, if I'm going to be able to help build trust with the immigrant community, I must first put to rest a lie that's been told on me for the last 7 years. And that is that I'm against immigrants, because I made a vote on the school board in 2010, uninformed, since then having understood what DACA really meant, what the DACA really meant. And so, but because of that uninformed vote, I was cast now as someone who was against immigrants. And so I need to make sure that it's understood that that is absolutely false. I have nothing against immigrants, because I can't begin to build trust if they think that I don't trust them. And so the first thing is on a personal basis to make sure that people understand that I have nothing against immigrants, period, Hispanic or otherwise. And that lie was told and has been continuing to go on and go on. So I need to make sure that that is clear to those who are here. Because once that is clear, now I can go in a genuine sense to my Hispanic brothers and sisters, or other immigrant brothers and sisters, and find out what is it that they need from the city to be able to help them be able to live a little bit more at peace in this city. Until that trust is rebuilt, then that won't happen. And so I want to make sure that those who are here, who are in the Hispanic community and any other immigrant community, understand that Melvin Hargrove do not and have not ever had anything against the immigrants.
The question was, how will you build trust between our city institutions and our immigrant communities?
I believe that you build trust one person at a time. I think having an administration in City Hall, in our police department, in all of our social service agencies that make it clear to our immigrant population that they are not only welcome here, but we want them to stay. These are my neighbors we're talking about. I cannot imagine, as Representative Mason said, the thought of sending your child out to school and thinking that that child is going to be deported, or that you're going to be deported. Our country is founded on immigrants. We need to force our elected officials at the federal level to enact laws that will treat the people that are here in a fair way, so that they can assimilate and become citizens in this country, and then move forward from there. So, like I said, I cannot imagine being an immigrant here and feeling that you might not be able to go home at the end of the day. And I have not known of anyone that has been deported from the city of Racine. If I was aware, I would fight against that. You bet I would.
All right, my thing about the immigrants, my family came here at a time when there were no borders. We were never immigrants, but I can relate with them, and I can definitely say that the immigrants play a big role in our economy. They do the work that we do not want to take, like in our crops. We want to pick our own cabbage. We don't want to take a janitor job, or the lesser type of job sectors that they would be able to take and help out with. I think it's important for that person or individual I think it's important that we get this person documented into our payroll system, and that's where we fail to realize is that they do play a big role in our economy, because with the money that they do make, and even though they're not on our payroll system, they contribute by the items that they purchase, the clothes they put on their back, the food they get from the grocery store, the luxuries when they're taking their families out to eat. We got to realize that we are a nation of immigrants, and that's what we're built on. And when Native Americans accepted the Pilgrims, they helped them out with food access. They helped them out in how to grow their systems so that they can thrive here in America, and gave them a place for them to feed and dwell. I think we need to continue that same culture and get these people into our system. That way they are contributing into the taxes and are going to be a part of this American dream. We can't leave anybody behind. And right there is the first thing of saying that you can't be a part of this team. And when America is built on immigrants, we got to realize that's what we are, and continue bringing these people in and training them and building them up and be better workers.
Thank you. Number one of the ways we build trust, folks, doesn't matter what immigrant population you're from, we have to understand their culture. Whether you're African American, Armenian, Italian, in our case Hispanic, or actually myself, people use the word Latino or Hispanic as to really identify people of Spanish-speaking origin. But we're not all Mexican. Okay, so we have to understand their culture. In our case, folks, even if you're not an immigrant, and like in my case, we are also affected by the racism, as Fabi was talking about, and so one of the things that I've done in the community since I retired from the police department, I've been involved in the community for about 18 years, and those are some of the issues that I have addressed. Some people come to me and say, Mr. Rendon, can you help me, because my husband just got picked up, and he's been held. With the DACA kids, folks, again, these kids, the only thing un-American about a DACA kid, folks, is the fact that he was brought in or she was brought in as an infant. Otherwise, he's about as American as the next kid next to him or her, right? And so, if you've been reading, if we were to deport all the 800,000 DACA kids that are living in the United States, folks, and Mr. Rodriguez talked about jobs, and the appeals and so on and so forth. Yeah, some do that, but a lot of the DACA kids, folks, are working in mainstream big corporations, as even, as a matter of fact, some of these big corporations have asked that they be kept in the city. So we have to be able to relate with them and be able to build the trust that is needed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Maldonado, what are your ideas on improving transportation options for city residents?
So my idea as mayor, I would use the funds that the RDA is currently using, wasting, squandering. They wasted over $15 million on failed projects in the last 15 years. They get about $1 million, 1.5 million, every year from the IG fund, the Intergovernmental Fund, which is a fund that we get money from the surrounding counties to use the water sewage treatment. The water sewage. So, in exchange that we wouldn't annex them and they could use the water. We have been squandering the money on failed projects year after year after year. The projects are just collecting, the projects are just sitting there, collecting dust, not collecting taxes either. So I would use that fund to start funding transportation, make our transportation's out of date, maybe start using like I believe it's called GIS systems in our buses. We need to start building for the future and having promoting a more inviting environment for people to start using buses, and that way we could fight climate change at the same time. Building, kind of like in Milwaukee, they have a bike program where you could rent the bikes, and then you could use the bikes to get from point A to point B. So I think that's another good idea that we can start doing too. But we need to start getting these buses to start reaching the county, because some of the factories there, there's a lot of factories there that a lot of people have a hard time getting out there. A lot of people here are unemployed, and a lot of people don't have cars. So that would be my goal, is to start using the IG fund and get that ball rolling that way.
Not only will we look at using the IG fund, but I think we should also, when it comes to the issue about improving transportation options for city residents, we need to look at it and also connect it with the ability of getting people to jobs. One of the things you have to look at is that if it's hard to get the job to the person, let's get the person to the job. And so what happens is you actually are able to look at a private-public partnership with maybe some of the companies around here that could then say, as opposed to just looking at the bus system, there may be also an opportunity for entrepreneurship. Somebody may come up with a van service. They may come up with a bus service that can be GIS, where you actually have routes where people who are literally going to work and need to be picked up, you can actually GIS those, put those on routes, and pick them up to go back and forth to work. I believe that that's a good way to look at improving transportation in the city. We have to understand that it's not just about the city buses going, here and there. It's about people who need to get back and forth to work as well. And I believe that if you can do a public-private partnership, as well as using the monies, but also looking at how we connect that transportation with the ability for them to get back and forth to jobs, I think that's what we need to be looking at as well.
Thank you. I hear two things when I hear about our public transportation. I hear people complain that they see buses riding around town all the time that are empty. And I hear from other people that they do not have the transportation needs met because the buses don't go where they need to do an assessment of our current route system to see what people need and where they need to go. And I agree with Mr. Hargrove that we do need to have a better partnership with the business in getting people to and from work. But there's also other places that people need to get to. So we need to have a clear understanding of what people's needs are as far as where they need to go, so that we can seriously look at providing a system that would serve them. People need to get to grocery stores. There's no inner city grocery stores anymore. They have to have transportation there. They need transportation to get their children to school. All those need to be considered, and we need to hear from the people as far as what their needs are. We can't sit on high and think, well, this is what is going to be best for you. We need to know from the people where their needs are, where they need to go, when they need to get there. We have continued to cut routes for almost as long as I've been on the city council, and I remember former Mayor Gary Becker saying, if we cut even one more route, we might as well just get rid of the bus system, because people are not going to rely on it because it doesn't get them anywhere. We need to have a better assessment of what the needs of people who rely on public transportation, where they need to go and when they need to get there. So I think that's the first step in providing a transportation system that truly will serve the public that needs to rely on that system.
When it comes to our public transportation system, I believe we can develop it a little bit better. We can reach the person a little bit closer to their destination by arriving possibly or even getting closer to their houses. If we can work with our bus system to transport our people a little bit better, and it's an incredible thing that could go on, and it could help out our people get their job a little bit faster. Usually it takes the bus around an hour. People are disgruntled by the wait. They're not showing up on time. They have to go to the bus a little bit earlier in order to make it to their job. I think we can do a better job at getting these people around and on time. Instead of an hour lapse, maybe go back down to a 30-minute lapse. Also, if we could integrate something within our our city buses with the green light system, where when they approach the lights, it could switch for them so they can make those routes on time. And also providing with those who are far away from a bus system, they have to commute to get to the route. If the transportation system can actually meet that person halfway or at the house and get them onto that route so that they can make it to their jobs on time, I think it's an important role. Also making riding a bus a fun experience. If there was a tour bus that can tell the history of Racine, because there's a historic background to the city, and I think that could definitely benefit into the routes and the system of transportation. Thank you.
Number one, I guess, one of the things that as mayor, one of the things I would create, because we don't all have all the answers, obviously, but one of the things that I would, instead of trying to implement something that I think would work, or even the Common Council would think it would work, create a commission. Would be inclusive of some of the corporate owners, some of the company owners, some of the workers that go through these companies, and some people from, obviously people from the busing company. And the idea that behind that, folks, is, well, let's take a look at it, at what we currently have, what are some of the ways we can improve it, some of the ways that people, it's like Mr. Rodriguez said, instead of waiting for the bus to come every hour, because if you miss the first bus, you're going to be going to work late. And if you do that enough times, you ain't going to be going to work. So that's one of the things that I would do, folks. We need to communicate with the citizens, I said, and let's look at the bus sizes. Do we really need all the buses, big buses? Let's look at the routes that carry the most people and routes that carry the lesser amount of people. People need to get to work. People need to get to the grocery store. People need to get to the doctors and the hospitals. So we need to be able to provide that type of transportation, folks, system so that the people will be able to get the health, food, or jobs that they need to have to survive and maintain a family living, conditions. And pretty much that's what I would do. My main thing would be let's work with the several people that I just mentioned as far as the commission goes, and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think we need to think about connecting transportation to jobs and how important that is. But there's other components to transportation that I think are very important. I wanted to share a story with you. I was at a listening session that I was invited to a few years ago by what was then called the Bell Urban System to talk a little bit about transportation funding and paratransit. And there was a young woman there in a wheelchair, and she said to me during her testimony, she said, when you cut funding for transportation, you make my world a little bit smaller. And I've never forgotten that. It's really important to remember that for a lot of people, public transportation is how they get to see the world. It's how they interact with the world. It's how they get to the doctor. It's how they see their friends and family. And yes, it's also how they get to work. But we need to remember how important that is. We need more transportation options. I was actually involved in getting a bill passed at the state level so that we could have Uber and Lyft and other transportation options like that, because we don't have a lot of cabs here in Racine. So now if you have access to a smartphone, you can get Uber here in Racine. But beyond that, we can't have it take an hour for people to get to work, especially if the route is 6-7 miles long. That's too long. The other thing that we need to talk about is trains. I was really involved, and I'm still a big proponent of commuter rail coming up from Kenosha to Racine, and letting us connect ideally up to Milwaukee. But if we can't do that, if we could even bring the Metro up one more stop to Racine and let our residents access that entire workforce moving south, I think it could be transformative for Racine. And lastly, we are the biggest city in the Midwest that is the furthest away from an interstate. I think we need to think about how long it takes to get in and out of Racine when you get off the interstate. We have to think about how do we have other options to allow people to move in and out of here more quickly. Transportation is critical to our future, and as mayor, I'll fight for all those options.
Thank you. Hargrove, what steps do you feel we need to take that would ensure our USD schools are not placed under state control?
I might have a little history on that, I think. As mayor, first of all, I want us to understand as a mayor, and then versus our USD. As mayor, we are two separate entities, government entities. And so therefore, first and foremost, I can try to provide any type of advocacy, any type of relationship building I can do, partnerships I can also have alongside our USD as things move forward. But I want us to understand something real quickly, and it's this, that before we get too far out with everything, with all that's happening with the state level, I think some of you may remember a couple of years ago where we tried to actually get the handbook passed and get it revised. One of the reasons was because of what we're facing right now. It's because of what the state was expecting of us to do. And we did not align our handbook with the state. The second thing is that the administration began to put things into place to move student achievement forward. They did that. We failed in moving the handbook and putting it in alignment. I think that has to happen. The mayor can't make that happen. There has to be a decision that's made by the school board to continue to move forward. Now, as mayor, though, we have to understand that we have to continue to move and keep our focus on student achievement, because the other thing is, as long as we move forward with student achievement, that there's a possibility that this won't happen. Now, I know there are other amendments in the bill itself that still allows for it to happen. But I believe that at this point, until we can understand, until we get in alignment with our handbook issue and continue to make sure that our schools are on a trajectory forward with the extra year that they've given us, then I believe that we may see, we may see them back off a little bit of trying to take over the states to take over the schools. So I want us to understand that until we do that, there's a thing that must be done outside of the mayor's control. And that's comes with the school board, making sure they're on target to do that.
Thank you. Well, I've been knocking doors for the last 6 weeks, and I have learned firsthand how important the issue of Unified is to the people of the city of Racine. And I did not have as clear understanding 6 weeks ago as I do today. The consensus that I hear from the people that I talk to that are very concerned about a state takeover of our school system is that the fate of Unified is also the fate of the city of Racine. If Unified goes, the city will not be far behind it. In a large part because the success of the city is dependent on the success of Unified. The city can find better ways and utilize the infrastructure that we already have in place with different organizations to improve the success for the students in Unified, so that the consideration of taking over Unified goes away, the rationale goes away. We also have to be very clear to our state representatives that schools must and will remain under local control. They're our schools, right? It's our city, and the state cannot take over what belongs to us. We pay for it, and it's ours. So, like I said, it's been so important to people to know that their school system will be protected, and that we all have to work together to make sure that our students succeed, so that the whole notion of the takeover goes away.
My opinion on a school takeover, I don't think it should happen. I think our teachers need to be more valued and not looked to as a number. I think it would undermine the teacher and affect the student's ability to progress, because if they're looked to as a number, there's no reason to attach to the student on a more personal level and help them succeed in life. So it becomes a more biased way of living, and I think the outcome of that will be more dropout rates and also less succession in education. Right now we're at a 52% rate of failure, and that's a pretty high number. come and expect it from me as well. We need to do a better job at reaching out to these students on a more personal level for them to achieve education, reaching their dreams and goals and aspirations in life. If we have to make school more fun and more active so that they're ready to learn, and that's the thing we need to get to these students is to get them to respect the education. That the biggest challenge we have to face right now is keeping control of our school system on a local level.
See, one of the things that we need to do, folks, as Ms. Wagner said, that the school district is ours. It belongs to the taxpayers of the city. The last thing we need to do is have state come in and now tell us how to run our school district. We do have great teachers. One of the challenges, folks, that we do have is the fact that cities like Milwaukee, cities like Racine, they have a huge minority population. That said, what happens a lot in those communities, most of these minority parents, a lot of them are single parent families, a lot of them work in 2 jobs. In the Hispanic community, some of these parents may be limited English speaking. So when they come home with homework, who's going to help them? So those are some of the challenges that we have. One of the things that I would do, folks, as mayor, we were faced with that situation. I would create a liaison. I would assign somebody from the city to work with the school district to look at ways to improve the academics for our students. One of the things that I would recommend is let's look at these community centers. Let's start doing some after school programs, because those are the programs that do help these kids achieve, get the homework help that they need. John the 23rd, as a matter of fact, one of my grandkids went there and he improved his grades tremendously because he had somebody help him. Okay, and so those are some of the things we need to have happen, so that we don't want somebody from this, not from Racine area, try to run a school district that we have run for all these years, folks. So, because it looks like Ms. Biden said, it belongs to us, and it should be under local controls. Thank you.
Well, simply put, it is unacceptable for the state to talk about taking over local schools to privatize them to other operators. It is unacceptable for the state legislature to offer legislation that would allow the surrounding villages to unilaterally decide if they want to vote to break away, but give city residents no vote, no voice. Absolutely unacceptable. That's why Senator Wirch, Representative Bark, and I are having a forum on this tomorrow at Knapp Elementary School, a brand new school that we just built. It's a community school. It's doing great things, but it's one of the schools that they could take over if this moves forward. I would encourage everybody here to attend that. It's at 1:30, just between church and the Packer game. And come to Knapp Elementary School, hear all about it. And I would encourage everybody up here on the table to be there too. I think we need to be communicating to the legislature with one voice on this. Hands off our schools. And if they're serious about wanting to improve the state of education, then they should start adequately funding it so that we can address the needs of kids living in poverty who live in our community. So this is as important as any issue I've come across in the 11 years that I've been here. Schools are critical to the future of our democracy, the future of our workforce, and we've got to make it clear that these are our schools and these are our kids, and it's not to be somebody's petri dish for whatever ideological thing they want to try next. These are our schools for our kids, so I would encourage everyone to be there. And look, there's potential civil rights violations around here. It is not okay to say that we're going to have a suburban school district of more affluent and mostly white kids and another school district of more poor kids with more diversity, and not pretend that's not going to have a disparate impact on kids and their education. We've got to say with one voice and with the whole community, no to a state takeover.
Yep, as mayor, I will do whatever I can to also stop the takeover from the state. The state has been nothing but hostile to our teachers. Act 10 was the beginning of it. My teacher right now, former teacher, Mr. Terrell, is sitting right there, and for me, I didn't have the most encouraging family at home. My home life wasn't the best, so going to school was a big relief. And it was my teachers that inspired me to continue. They were the only ones that were positive in my life, and I will always be appreciative of that to all my teachers in Case High School, Starbuck, and in college. So for me, this is very personal too. Teachers are usually, it's real easy to blame teachers for the failing grades that we have, but we all, as parents, we have to do whatever we can to help our kids with homework. It's not only the teacher's job, but it's also our job to do it. But I know it's kind of hard because a lot of us are working 2 jobs to make ends meet. Like my parents, they were always working. So my brother and I would come home, and we came home to an empty house. So it's, I know not every parent is there, but that's why we have to fight for a living wage. We have to start fighting for our teachers. We have to rebuild the unions and make them stronger again. When the unions were strong back in the 50s, the middle class was also strong. So we need to start pushing back to making our union strong. The Act 10 was a law created by Vance Muse. Who is Vance Muse? He is the guy who's trying to stop FDR from getting elected. And he did this to stop the unions, and his goal was to pit people against each other. And this is what this is. It's going to be segregated. It's going to be Brown versus the Board of Education all over again. It's going to be the county versus the city, and that is not the way we should be going about this.
I'll offer this as a follow-up question. Mr. Mason touched on this, but you were given another question relative to that, as far as what are your thoughts on surrounding suburban communities' desire to split into separate school districts? And we'll start with Ms. White.
Well, I think that is probably the worst idea that could ever, come down the pike. And I think, as Representative Mason said, there would probably be civil rights violations with that, and it would create a disparate population not being served. So I don't know where the discussion is coming from that there would be this kind of split, but physically I just don't see how it could happen, and we cannot let it happen. And I think most people who live in the surrounding communities, Caledonia, Mount Pleasant, they're not looking to separate. I think that this notion is coming from some level far above the people that would be most affected by it. And everyone should have a voice. Everyone that is involved in our unified school system should have a vote and a voice as to whether any community split off from unified. That cannot happen.
All right, I'm not too briefed up about the community or unified being split, but I think it shouldn't be split in half, separating our entities, and I think that would further divide our community. And by me saying that is, this school is better off being in our district because they're more prominent or their educational background is better, but then this school system, we don't want to take that because there's a failure rate going on or there are bad students over there. We just don't want them to be involved in our school system so that we can focus on these students. I mean, a split, it could lead to a lot of different aspects in the life, and some might even feel their civil rights have been violated by the move itself. I think keeping a decision open for our school districts based on whether that student wants to go to the school or is just uncomfortable being in that school, if they can put them in a more appropriate school, then that's what we should be leaning on instead of making all these cutbacks on certain school districts. That's all I got to say on that.
It's one thing to talk about it, folks, but it's another thing to have lived it. As I mentioned to you in the beginning, I grew up in Texas. Growing up in a little town in Texas, 5,000 population, railroad tracks going through the middle. East side of the tracks, all white people. West side of the tracks, all Mexican families. There's a couple of black families living on our side of town. On the east side elementary, all white kids. West side elementary, all Mexican kids. That's where I went to school. Even the black kids had their own 2 or 3 room schoolhouse. The only time we came together, Coach, was at junior high and high school. And again, let me qualify if I said the society obviously was not what it is today. So, by these communities wanting to split or secede from the unified school district, I'm afraid, as Corey mentioned as well, that's what would occur. And as a matter of fact, that's one of the reasons they built out out in Servant. They added a middle school out in Servant, only because some of the families wanted not to have the kids go into. And actually, one of the schools that they were talking about was Gilmore. The perception, folks, a lot of times the perception is what it is. The perception is Gilmore not been one of the best schools around. That's one of the better middle schools around, folks. And so we don't want to go back to that. Diversity, as we know, is good because we get to learn. Again, I talked about culture earlier. We learn to talk, learn to communicate with each other, learn to get along with each other, become friends, and as a matter of fact, in today's world, interracial marriages are pretty high too. So I would be quite against having the school system split up. Thank you.
Well, I think it's critically important for us to all say no to a new era of racially segregating our schools. It's just too important. I'm sort of stunned in the last week, some of the things we've been debating between, the DACA rally and then now discussing whether or not, we're going to have to apply Brown versus Board of Education here locally. And these are things that should have been settled decades ago. But racism is pernicious, and we've got to call it out when it exists and where it exists and call it for what it is. Now, there are some people who get offended by that language and just say, oh, that's just, it's just hyperbole. It's not. It's absolutely not. And so I think it's really important that we oppose what the state is talking about doing. And just think about what this means, that the surrounding villages alone get to vote on whether or not they break up unified. But people living in the city who send their kids to schools, they get no vote. They get no say on this. I can't think of anything not only more with having disparate incomes around race and class, but it's also undemocratic. We're going to say that the parents of the kids who have most of the kids in unified now don't even get a vote. That's just absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I'll say this, there's been much discussion locally about how we all need to get along better regionally, that the surrounding villages in the city have this shared future and we need to work together. And I agree with that sentiment, I really do. But how do you say on one day, hey, City of Racine, we could really use some water for a big economic development project. And then the next day say, but by the way, you're on your own with the schools, we're taking arms. Unacceptable. As mayor, as legislator, or as long as I have breath, that is not the kind of policy I can support, and I'll fight it with everything that I've got.
So I'm pretty sure everybody knows where I stand in segregation of schools here. But I want to share a quick story about my experience being a student at RUSD. I'm from Grand and 17th Street. That's the south side of Racine. Only in Racine can a guy from the hood be best friends with a guy in the country who shoots his guns all the time. You know what I mean? And it's only unique to Racine because when I went to UW Milwaukee, I was like in culture shock. I go to UWM and it's white people hanging out with white people. It's Mexican people hanging out with Mexican people, and it's black people hanging out with black people. And it was like I couldn't fit in. You know what I mean? A lot of my friends are white and black and Latino, and that's something that's only unique to Racine. I wanna make sure we understand that that's our reality here. Even though there is racism, we still we can relate more because we see each other. You know what I mean? We see each other every single day when you go to Case High School, when you go to Park, or when you go to Horley. We're kind of forced to be with each other, but then at the end of the day, you love being with everybody. You know what I mean? Yeah. So this is how you fight discrimination and racism. It's by having our people included. So by the state coming in, potentially segregating us, that is one step.
I believe if it's done, intended or unintended, it's going to yield some massive results to the negative, especially for the city. no doubt. But I need to share this, and this is something, people who know me know that I don't shy away from difficult conversation. And the difficult conversation we have to have is this. We've heard it all over that we are a nation of laws. Now, whether you accept the law or not, I remember growing up, and if I didn't clean the kitchen up, my mother came home on off a second shift. She'd wake me up and my brothers up to go get the kitchen clean, or she'd wake us up with the belt. Now, that may have seemed unfair, but what we did not do is we did not follow her law. And because we didn't follow her law, we had to deal with the consequences. What I'm trying to share is when we were putting forth the handbook, as a school board, I was demonized, and that's fine. I got broad shoulders, I could deal with that. That's great. But what we did not realize is that whether we like it or not, Act 10 was the law and still is the law. And we have to follow the law. We break the law, we have to pay the consequences. I know you don't want to hear that, but at the end of the day, the consequences have to be paid for breaking the law. What do? Vote people out, put people in, change the law. And then you can abide by that. And so we have to understand, and I know this is not popular, but understand that until the law can change, we have to follow the law. If we don't follow the law, we have to then suffer the consequences of that. Whether it's what you see at this point, which I think is very devastating if that happens, but that's the law. And we have to deal with that. And we deal with it the best way, and that is follow the law. Get the handbook right, get it out the way, continue to move the students in the trajectory upward, and then you won't see this happen.
Mr. Rodriguez. 12 states as well as the District of Columbia now have both medical marijuana and decriminalization laws. Senator Cory Booker has now proposed a bill to decriminalize marijuana federally. Would you support the proposed referendum here in Racine to decriminalize marijuana? And if so, how and why?
Well, boy, we're on the marijuana subject here. Decriminalization, as we know, has been, marijuana has been decriminalized in 12 other states, and Racine is one of the main places that still prosecute for little marijuana charges. Is under the discretion of the officer, whether or not that person be placed on probation or just get a ticket or not. And a lot of times that can leave a lot of biased cases, because there's some people that get better fingers than the other person, and that's something we shouldn't. It causes a little discrimination, because we don't know if this white person is being treated better than this minority person, and in a lot of cases that has happened, and it's being placed as unfair treatment. I would definitely support a bill to open medical marijuana in this community, and to see if this is something that this community is prepared for, and leaving an option for this community to thrive on with marijuana itself. A lot of times we're faced with we're skeptical about what marijuana can do. Would this be in control of gangs, or would this be in control of successful and friendly business operators, or where this is going to lead us? But I think we need to work more with laws and also our lawmakers to make it possible for marijuana to be legal. And I think Racine should open up a little bit more on marijuana and their laws to be more acceptable with recreational use as well. It could be profitable for this community as it is for Colorado.
Mr. Rendon.
Thank you. And earlier I mentioned that one of the things I do for Educators Credit Union is offer financial literacy. I do those in the correction systems, RCI, SDF, Filmers in Milwaukee, the Women's Prison in New York, not New York, I wish, in Union Grove. The other one is Women's Prison in Milwaukee. when I do the session post in the men's prison, if I have 20 or 25 people in my class, I would say 23 of those folks are African American. And the majority of those folks usually are there because of some type of drug violation, okay? So as to supporting medical marijuana, I do support that, would support that, even recreational. If you all remember back in the Prohibition days, you know, selling liquor, selling all that stuff was illegal. So who did it, you know, back again? So they finally legalized it, and we still have it. We would have abuse of the substance or abuse of alcohol. We still have that. So one of the things that would happen is to be able to decrease the prison population, and so that some of these men and women that are now incarcerated would come out here and be citizens that would be able to contribute to their communities. So again, as I said before, I would be for, because a lot of people that are sick, the morphine that they're taking does not help anymore. A lot of them resort to marijuana to alleviate the pain that they have. So I would support it in that sense as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I don't think there's anything smart about public policy that spends tens of thousands of dollars incarcerating people for smoking marijuana. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. It takes them out of their community. It makes it harder for people to get jobs after they get out, and it's very expensive. It's part of the reason I'm an author of Assembly Bill 409, which is a bill at the state level to decriminalize marijuana, similar to what Cory Booker has recommended at the federal level. I think we need to have a real conversation about what we do here. When you add on top the compounding nature of the fact that we incarcerate more people of color per capita than any other state in the country, that's a real problem. And drug policy is driving some of that. So I think we have to be smarter about that. And I think the more we can pass local referenda, whether it's in Racine or other places around the state, to say that, look, we should decriminalize this. This isn't good public policy. It's very expensive, and it's wreaking havoc on our community. The better off we'll be. Now, I'm pleased to say that for the first time in my legislative tenure, the bill to decriminalize marijuana actually has bipartisan support, which is something new. It is my real hope that people will start seeing this issue differently. If we want to have strong communities, we can't be moving people out of their communities and into prisons for years on end for these crimes, and making it very hard for them to rehabilitate and really serve full lives in their community. So I think decriminalization makes good sense. And I would just also mention, if people get the chance in heaven, people should read the article that the Journal Times did a couple years ago about the distinction between how the police force charges. Sometimes they charge the local ordinance that's a civil forfeiture, sometimes they charge criminally. We should figure out why that is. Thank you.
So, when we started the Racine Green Party, my first initiative was to decriminalize marijuana here in the city of Racine. We were the ones pushing for this initiative. We were the ones working for this initiative. While some mayoral candidates were out there on the 4th of July parade, on Memorial Day, parading, we were working. So the goal here was to decriminalize marijuana because, as we all know, southeastern Wisconsin, we have the highest incarceration rate of young African American males in the whole United States of America. Right here. Right here is the worst place. We need to stop being supportive because it's easy to say we support, but a lot of elected officials always say we support. There's a difference between supportive and being proactive. We need to start being proactive about decriminalization. We need to start being proactive about weakening the for-profit prison systems. We need to start being proactive about living wages, and we need to start being proactive about really waving our progressive flag. So my goal is to run multiple candidates in the 2018-2019 election to make sure that our progressive values are heard, and my goal is to bring the progressive flag back from the middle, back to the left. And I do not support Cory Booker's decriminalization efforts. He should be braver and be pushing for full legalization of marijuana.
I was one of those candidates out on the parade while he was working. I do support the decriminalization, not the legalization of marijuana. And the reason why I support the decriminalization is because of the disparity and discretion that's led to the disparity in incarceration rates of people of color. Right? And I also support it because at some point we have to find a way and the means to be able to, for those individuals who have the discretion on the street, we have to begin to ask ourselves with the DA and maybe challenge the DA when they come to the DA to charge for felony or misdemeanor, to look at the ordinance that's already on the books and begin to look at the ordinance and then start really governing by the ordinance. I'm not a police officer, nor am I an attorney, but I do know that at this point there's massive disparity in this, and so therefore I think in order to decriminalize it, I think is probably the better way to go to reduce the disparities in the incarceration rates of people of color especially. Now, I do not support legalization of marijuana. And I always share this, and I had these conversations probably the last month now about this, that in the medical marijuana I'm still just thinking about, only because sometimes people want to self-prescribe marijuana to themselves and call it medical marijuana until there is the stringent rules and regulations on how that happens. I would have to say no to the support of medical marijuana.
Well, I know that those that worked on the decriminalization initiative worked very, very hard, and they received a substantial amount of support from our community. As a matter of fact, I signed the petition myself. I'm not aware of exactly how it was disqualified by the city clerk's office from being placed on a ballot, but I am not in support of complete legalization of marijuana because of the aggressive marketing that has occurred in other states. But I think that the current laws that criminalize the cannabis are too far-reaching, and that they have very damaging effect on our community. Medical marijuana has helped many who suffer with conditions that can be benefited from the use of marijuana, and I think it should be used in those instances. Although I'm not in support of legalization for recreational use, I do believe that the handling of marijuana should not be a criminal offense.
Great, thank you. We have many more questions. However, we don't have a lot more time. So we appreciate your fortitude. We appreciate the candidates and their answers. We're going to give each of you 2 minutes to make a closing statement. And then I have a few announcements. And I'm sure you will be happy to stand up and get up out of here. So why don't we start with Ms. Widener on your final remarks.
Thank you. I have reservations about coming here today. Social justice issues are not my strongest point. I have been on the city council for 18 years, and I have been a strong advocate for change and for people's involvement. I have always fought for my constituents, and I will continue to fight for all of the people of the city of Racine should I be elected mayor. We have a lot of issues that are taking place in the city of Racine right now that need to be addressed. And I think what you need is for the city to have is someone with grit, something that I've proven time and again that I have. We have had in the past a lot of glitz and glamour, and now it's time to get down to business to correct some of the things that have happened over the past administration. We have blown more money out of the intergovernmental fund in an unprecedented number over the last 8 years. And we have to address that and put the City of Racine back on the correct fiscal path. And I believe because of my experience on the City Council and because I have the will to fix some of these things, that I should be your candidate of choice to serve as the next mayor of the City of Racine. And I want to thank you too for taking time out of your day and coming here this afternoon. I know you all have busy lives, and I do appreciate you taking time to get to know me a little bit. And thank you very much.
I just want to say thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. It was really great of you, for you guys to come out and listen to my spiel on things and I want to be the mayor of Racine. But I do really want to serve for this community, and I think I can bring inspiration and hope for our community, and we can thrive from there. Remember, vote for Austin, and not voting for me is a missed opportunity. Thank you.
I will think about that, Austin. Again, thank you, every one of you, for taking time on a Friday evening to come out here and listen to us. Saturday. I'm sorry, Saturday. Saturday. But anyway, I guess one thing that I want to say is, of the most of us that are up here have worked with the City of Racine Police Department for 24 years. I've worked with the overall community. My last 5 years, I worked in the Area 5, which is the 18th Street Mall area, for about 5 years. I worked in boundaries, I've worked in the field, so as far as relating to people, folks, I think I have that advantage. Again, one of the things we need to do for the city is to have a transparency, folks. We need to get the politics out of City Hall. I am not a politician, folks. I said I'm not even looking for a job, as I said, because I'm already retired. I get a pension from the city. I'm already old, so I get Social Security. So I've got that income coming in. As I said before, I don't even know what this position pays. So, but what I want to do, folks, I care about this community. I've been caring for the late 18 years, 19 years since I retired. I've been about what the community, the overall community, the African American, Hispanic, and the business community, because I sit on several boards, the UW Parkside Foundation Board. I've been with RCDC, some of the other places that I talked about earlier. And so, one of the things that I want to do is, I want to have, like I said before, utilize whatever resources we have to make this community better for everyone. Because we have a community that's diverse, folks, but we don't embrace it. We did not embrace this community. And we have an awesome community, but we need to make it better by embracing, make sure that everybody is recognized and everybody has an opportunity to be able to contribute to this community. Thank you very much.
Well, I would like to thank everybody for coming out here and listening to us. This is actually democracy at its best, right? People show up, listen to what candidates have to say, hopefully make an informed decision before you go vote. So I want to thank each and every one of you for being here tonight. I want to thank my fellow candidates for being here as well. It's the first of 4 of these, and I look forward to a positive and vigorous debate. So I'm really thrilled and excited to be at this point and talking about running for mayor. Racine has so much going for it. We have so many opportunities. We are blessed to be between Milwaukee and Chicago, right on Lake Michigan with the river that runs through town, and some big announcements just around the corner. But we need the leadership to seize that opportunity. We need new leadership in City Hall to take advantage of what may be generational opportunities that are just around the corner. I want to be the kind of mayor that brings our community together, that celebrates our diversity, that gives big success, large middle-class success to a broader number of people, and really move the city forward. I would be honored and thrilled to be your next mayor. Thank you so much for being here, and remember to vote on September 19th.
I want to thank everybody for coming here today. Again, this is not just a mayoral run for us. We are a movement, and I'm asking, this is a call to action to all my brothers and sisters that are here today. if you ever want to run for office, please come through. We want to pass a real progressive agenda and not just be stagnant. My goal is to get rid of stagnant politicians, and we want to be pushing true progressive policies. So if you want to be part of the movement, please talk to me after the forum. But yes, please let's fight together to get rid of stagnation. Racine has been stagnant for many decades, and you know we had Gary Becker and we had John Digger, and we don't want the same old, same old. Let's get this ball rolling in the city of Racine, and that's it.
I too would like to say thank you to the NAACP and also the consortium of groups that helped put this together. In my closing, I want to share something that's come to me a few times now, more than it did the last mayoral run. That is, what does a pastor know about being a mayor and running a city? Believe it or not, I've been asked that many times. So just real quickly, just a few things. As a pastor, I'm a businessman who has understood that you have to have a zero balance budget and not spend more money than you have, even if no matter how great the idea is. As a pastor, I have led our church to purchase property, build a community garden with collaboration from municipal government as well as local business and a nonprofit that is now benefiting our community. As a pastor, I must understand organization, leadership, structure, and development so that as I lead the organization, I can lead the organization to leave it go and let it go beyond where I am. As a pastor, I must be a visionary communicator to lead and move the organization I am in charge of forward, otherwise it's going to remain stagnant. I must also know that I must lead based on moral leadership, knowing I must be the first to set the example of character, integrity, and transparency. As a pastor, I must navigate the politics of personalities to produce positive outcomes and solutions. And those of you who know church politics know that can be a huge climb sometimes. My goal is to do the greatest good for all the members of my congregation and don't have the luxury of picking special interests, saying that I will do for the city. As the founding pastor of City of Racine Ministries, Inc., I am an entrepreneur who have been blessed to have started, established, and maintained an organization for the last 19 years successfully that have impacted this community on various levels. And I would like and love to bring these qualities into the office of mayor for the City of Racine with your vote this upcoming week in the primary, or next week in the primary, September 19th. Thank you all for coming to this forum.
If I may, very quickly, I have 2 announcements and then we'll be dismissed. Hopefully you enjoyed, you really learned something from this time that you're here. Please share with family and friends that the next forum is this coming Tuesday, September 12th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Cesar Chavez Community Center. That's 2221 Douglas Avenue. It will be